Hey, welcome everybody to Hope for Our Times. Listen, we have a special edition for you guys today with everything that is going on in the world and in Israel. There's so much to talk about. I'm certain that most of you have heard this by now. U.S. Army bases issue alert over terror attack in Europe. And then also, there's this news. Hezbollah drone attack wounds 18 IDF soldiers in the Golan Heights. And a lot of people are asking questions about Hezbollah. Is Hezbollah in Bible prophecy? And here's one of the questions people are asking. Does the war in southern Lebanon with Hezbollah and Israel tie into end-time Bible prophecy? So my guest today joining me in studio, not via Zoom, but in studio, is Bill Salus. And we're going to be looking at what's going on right now, where all of this is going, why it matters. So Bill, thank you for joining me. And we'll just start here. Does the war in southern Lebanon with Hezbollah and Israel tie into end times prophecy?
I believe the answer would be yes. I think there's actually three potential Bible prophecies that would connect Hezbollah into end times Bible prophecy. They're unfulfilled. When we look at Hezbollah, of course they hail from Lebanon. You have to think, well, in Lebanon in the Old Testament, well, Lebanon shows up. So anything that talks about Lebanon, Tyre, Sidon still exists. Both Tyre and Sidon still exist today. Sidon is also known as Sidon, S-A-I-D-A. And then the other one would be Gebal, and that's northern. Nowadays it's called B-Y-B-L-O-S, Byblos, or J-E-B-E-I-L, or J-B-E-I-L for the technicality of that. Now, they're sort of equidistant spaces. So southern Lebanon, you have Tyre, and about 21 miles north of that you have Sidon. 21 miles north of that you have Beirut. And about 20-some miles north of that you have Byblos or Gebal. So we're going to look at some prophecies that talk about Tyre, Sidon, and Gebal that I think we can show are unfulfilled. We also, when we look at these types of things, we look at, okay, what are these prophecies been fulfilled? Are they talking about war or judgment? To see if they fit for talking about a war, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so we'll kind of uncover that.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it because, a lot of these things, there's, it's clarity, and I think the Bible's very clear. The closer we get to the tribulation period, the more clarity we have on Bible prophecy. And I also believe that people who are in the tribulation who become believers are going to even have more clarity then than we even have now. As we look at events taking place, obviously what's going on in Israel is a huge deal. So much to talk about there. And so what I want to go through these things with you, because one of the things you're going to discuss today with all of us is Ezekiel 28. Nobody hears about Ezekiel chapter 28. They hear about Ezekiel 38. They hear about Ezekiel chapter 39, but not chapter 38. They'll hear about that. So I'm going to ask you to go into that in just a second. But we have these articles that also are very telling, and comment wherever you want, Bill. But there's been 7,400 cross-border attacks between Israel and Lebanon just since October 8th.
So stop there for a second. Imagine that, Tom. I know you got some more facts that are important, but it's about a 10-month conflict now since they started October 8th. Hezbollah got into the fray. 10 months, 7,400 cross-border attacks. That's, what is that, per month? I mean, that's 740 per month.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's even more than that because I think it's 8 months, only 8 or 9 months into it. So the numbers per month are actually even higher. Mm-hmm. And this is Hezbollah. This isn't just people crossing a border.
Yeah, so let's say 800 or so per month. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, and these are massive things, a lot of people dying, and like you said today, the drone attack, injures 18 IDF. I mean, this is major stuff. Just wanted to kind of put in perspective for the viewers. It's like, they are already, Israel and Hezbollah are already at war, but it's a phase one, and I'd like to talk about the phase one and phase two that Iran's got prepared, time permitting. But they're at war, but the thing is they're going to go to phase two here, in my estimation, soon. And as you read through these facts and these headlines, the viewers are going to understand, hey, this is escalating rapidly and could break open in a massive war, phase two, at any given time.
Yeah. So also to help everybody make the connection geographically, especially for anybody who's been to Israel before, then you get how this works. if you've been to Israel, you most likely went to the Golan Heights, to the area of Mount Bental, where you have the coffee shop up there. Also, Tel Dan is in the Golan Heights. You have Caesarea Philippi, which is up in that area, and the Sea of Galilee. The whole Galilee region is at the base of the Golan Heights. So all of that mountainous area up there. So that gives us an idea when we have this news today that 18 IDF soldiers were killed in the Golan Heights. So we can see just how close, and this has actually come into Israeli territory. So when you look at the south, we have Gaza. It's limited to Gaza. And Israel is certainly, they're just clearing that up. But the problem in the north is a different animal.
Yeah, well, and Hezbollah is so much more power-packed as a proxy of Iran. They're actually pretty much, I'll just say a couple things about Hezbollah real quick so the viewers can understand. It was established in 1982, conceived by Muslim clerics and funded by Iran, primarily to fight the Israeli invasion of Lebanon back then. Hezbollah means Party of God in Arabic. It's a Lebanese Shia Islamic political party and paramilitary group, led since 1992 by its Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. It's Hezbollah's paramilitary wing is the Jihad Council, and they have a political wing, and it's known as the Loyalty to the Resistance Bloc Party. And its armed strength is assessed to be equivalent to the medium-sized army. I mean, it's not like Hamas. This is actually a bona fide army with roughly about 150,000 missiles, some of them precision-guided, and they're all strategic targets pointed at Israel.
Yeah, that's. I look at all of these different things and thinking, man, this is a big deal. We think of all of the Israelis that have been evacuated, but what more is going to come as the threats just continue to increase? And by the way, everybody, I would ask you also if you would like, subscribe, and share this program. It's just it's a way that we can get the truth out there. It doesn't cost anything to do that. And also not just with this, but Bill, you also have your own videos that you do, and people can connect with you. So before we get too much further into this, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, the best way for getting my articles and videos and products and stuff is prophecydepot.com, Prophecy Depot like Home Depot.com.
There you go. Yeah. So there you got Prophecy Depot. You'll see it in the description too. But again, just really helps us, and we think we got to get the word out. And people are, how do I really get the word out? I'm a little bit shy. Well, share, like, subscribe, and share. And that's a free, easy way for you guys to just be involved and do what you can. And I think we're at a time where it's just necessary to get that truth out there too. And I really appreciate you coming by here in studio with us. It's kind of nice to have somebody in here instead of just doing via Zoom all the time.
Exactly, I enjoy it.
This is good.
It's only an hour drive for me. For those, I live pretty close to Tom here. I live out in the Palm Springs area, so it's an enjoyable drive for me.
So let me ask you this. Again, we're going to get into Ezekiel 28 and the other prophecies in a minute. But Israel has approved of this operational war against Lebanon. Where do you see, let's work out, what do you see in the immediate future? And then let's get into these passages too, because I want to hear your brain make these connections.
Well, they were, of course, prepared for a massive war with Hezbollah, which would then again draw in the other proxies. More than likely, of course, Iran's going to go full throttle in phase 2 here. And so they've been preparing for this multi-front war for a long time. Back in May of 2022, they did the massive Chariots of Fire drill, where they prepared for this multi-front war with a big focus on Hezbollah and Syria's chemical weapons. They're thinking that Hezbollah could fire in about 6,000 missiles a day for the first several days, and then taper down to about 2,000 effective missiles, meaning not taken out by Iron Dome or falling indiscriminately in fields. They prepared for lots of casualties, because that's to be expected from this kind of war. They've already had casualties in phase 1. So they're prepared for this war, and it's going to take on a whole nother look at this point in time, and it's going to draw in, I think, all the proxies. Think about this, Tom, back on, what was it, April 18th, when Iran sent over 320 missiles, the drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. They didn't expect 99% of those to be shot out in the mid-flight. They expected some of those to hit their targets, and that would have changed the whole face of the war with Israel and Hamas. They would have had to, at that point, in my estimation, they would have had to have Hezbollah ready to go fight on phase 2, Syria to go with its chemical weapons, the Houthis with their weapons that they say they can shoot to Tel Aviv with precision-guided missiles, Shiite militias in Iraq. The West Bank's got the Islamic Jihad in there. Israel's Seven Front War, including Iran. So basically, I think they were prepared for that. It failed, so they didn't have to go full throttle. But I think now they're prepared to go full throttle. Interesting thing on phase one, if we can show, and I don't want to steal the whole time here, but in the back there, if you guys could put the slide on phase one of Hezbollah's war campaign.
There you go.
I believe that Iran is going to execute a multifaceted, multi-phased campaign. Phase one has been very successful involving Hezbollah, which is their #1 strongest proxy. And their goals were accomplished were basically eightfold. They wanted to spread the IDF thin by diverting troops and important military resources to the north of Israel. Give that a check mark.
Yeah.
Deplete some of Israel's missile defense systems, namely the Iron Dome, which they've been doing that, create danger and chaos, hysteria among the civilians living in northern Israel, forcing these Israelis to evacuate their homes and towns, which roughly, I think it's about 80,000 have had to leave and about 60,000 have been evacuated, still living outside of their homes. They don't feel comfortable going back, of course.
You know, can I comment on these three real quick? The
Absolutely.
first three, because I'm looking at them, and they've been very successful at this. They're spreading the idea. If you guys can pull that up again, so I can't read it right now. Pull it up where it's bigger, and then I can keep reading it. There we go. Spread the IDF thin by diverting the troops. Deplete some of Israel's missile defense systems. That has been very significant. It's so costly when it comes to these things. And obviously the third one, creating danger. Okay, I'll let you take it away again. But I look at that and think, man, that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, and so regarding that one, depleting their missile systems, CNN reported on June 20th of this year, headline, U.S. concerned Israel's Iron Dome could be overwhelmed in a war with Hezbollah. I mean, we're talking right off the press here.
Right.
That's exactly was their intentions, to deplete their arsenal.
Can I say something here real quick?
Absolutely.
Because the one thing that I think we have to remember, I know, and sometimes people get anxious. Listen, Israel's going to come out ahead. We know how it's all going to end, but the threats against Israel are increasing. And just as the Bible warns us about. So listen, don't get anxious. Don't be anxious about anything is what the Bible tells us, because we know Jesus is on the throne. So as Bill goes further into this and explains some things, we know these things are going to increase, which will eventually lead to a false peace, but ultimately we got to remember Jesus is coming. And then also we have Bill's books and DVDs. We have a book and DVD bundle. Check out the Hope for Our Time store to really get the information out there. You guys can see it now. It's just fantastic, the things that Bill has. Okay, Bill, take it away.
I'm so glad you did a pause there and gave the good news like that, because we'll do the good cop, bad cop. I'm liable to scare people to death with all these things. So at any given time you want to take a reprieve, that's fine.
Yeah, I can see where this is. It's just going to be difficult. You know, that's the reality of it. Was it 2 Timothy chapter 4, chapter 3, in the last days, evil men will get worse and worse. Well, things are going to go from worse to better. But before they go from worse to better, that's when Jesus comes back. They're actually going to go from worse to worse. Right. So we have to remember we will get past that, and Jesus is on the throne, and he's going to save Israel. Okay.
Yeah, and all the end time signs are converging, but I think where the focus is going to start hitting the pavement with the prophecies rolling off their ancient parchments, pounding down, is this Middle East stuff. And it very well could be these, is Hezbollah and prophecy, because they could be the next prophetic thing to find fulfillment.
Yeah, watching this, Bill, is really something. So I'll stop talking. I'll let you take it.
Okay, we should go back to that slide if we can. I'm going to finish off the other couple things. The hysteria is going to render the people in the north who evacuated as non-combatants. Now think about this, Tom. The Israelis are pretty much all military trained because there's a mandatory draft. So they're taking out these guys who have military background, 60-some thousand out of them, when they do a ground invasion, which they are planning to do. Hezbollah is. Now they just have to face off with the troops, which is formidable, but they don't have to deal with 60,000 civilians who are pretty much combat ready also at this point in time, fighting for their lives and their homes. It also makes them a refugee burden on Israel and affects tourism dramatically. Now, I love the story you told it at the conference we were just at with the Prophecy Watchers in Colorado Springs. You were there not too long ago, and this taxi driver, you jumped in his car, and what did he tell you?
Yeah, he said, this was in March, and he said, I was his first customer since October 7th.
Yeah.
And the reality of, he was so excited. He was an Arab driver. And, when you go there, you're going to have Arab You'll have Christian Arab, you'll have Arab Muslim, you'll have Jewish drivers, and they're all out of work. And when we look at this, it is not getting better. And you look, you go, how are the people even surviving? The stops, the drivers, whatever it is. That, you walk down the streets where all the shop owners are out there, the little cafes, just being devastated. You feel bad, just feel really bad for everything that's happening because everybody's being affected. Not just the Jews, everybody's being affected. And it was just a real check.
That's part of their plan, phase one. Yep. That's a lot of money that comes into the national budget for them that's affected now. The other one is it provides more time for the international community to unite in propaganda media war. Well, we've been seeing that going on.
Oh, we have.
It's like Iran's eighth proxy, right?
Yeah.
The international community. And then lastly, it says gives Iran more time to arm their hypersonic ballistic missiles with nuclear weapons that are explicitly intended to wipe Jewish state off of the map. It was back, I think it was on May 19th, Grossi, the lead guy of the IAEA, came out and said, look, because they cut the inspections off back at the end of October, I think it was September of 2023. And he said, listen, I'm very concerned, this is the quote, I believe they're weeks away, not months, he said not months, but weeks away from a nuclear weapon. And lately now they're increasing their production with higher grade centrifuges and Fordo, to the point now where there's concerns, our headlines came out saying they could actually, at the rate they're starting to enrich uranium, they could have several nuclear weapons monthly. Wow. Several. And some of us think they've already got 5 or 6 explosive-ready nukes on the shelf already. So I would not be surprised to see them try to send a nuclear weapon, which I don't think God will allow that. That's a whole other prophecy in Jeremiah chapter 49, which we've talked about that in the past, but we kind of keep our focus back on Hezbollah. So I think it's important to realize that phase one has happened. Phase two is the next one. And that's when they start bringing in all the firepower. I think they were prepared to do that on April 18th. It backfired. It was a failure for them. So I think now they're ready to do it. They're warning, that, what's the headline there? The United Nations, something about it'll be apocalyptic.
Yes.
That sort of thing, that this next war, they'll be throwing people in the Stone Ages. Both sides are saying that. I mean, so. Yeah.
We look at these things. Bill, did you put together all 8 of those points? Because those are so spot on.
I put those together for a Prophecy Watchers magazine that came out in January. Said looking back on 2023 and looking forward on 2024. It's on my website also as an article, prophecydepot.com.
Those are they're so spot on, and that's exactly what we see happening. Wow. All right, as we continue through this process, let's go for a few minutes. Ezekiel 28, again, it's not that many people ever read Ezekiel 28, but let's talk there, because in Ezekiel 28, Bill, you have the 3 Lebanon prophecies, the first one being Sidon. So as we look at it, what does it say? How do you interpret that? How do you arrive where you are? Okay.
As I said, Sidon is just above Tyre on the coast of the southern coast of Lebanon, on the Mediterranean. I'm going to read a couple headlines.
Go for it. We
want to say this, and we're not in the business here of newspaper exegesis. Exegesis is the interpretation of a sacred text, namely like the Holy Scriptures, the Bible. We're not trying to marry up the newspaper headlines with the Bible, but of course these things are in living color right now, so it's okay to talk about that. Yeah. But we got to stay with the text and what is it?
Yeah. I try to say it this way and remind people: we don't allow the news to interpret the Bible. That's what you got to be careful of. You allow the Bible to interpret the news. So we don't take this and run it through the grid of the media. We run the media through the grid of the Bible. And so that's what we're doing. And when you look at it, you go, wow, this is interesting. And again, I think of Daniel, when he's told by the angel, Daniel, close the book and seal it up. It's not for you to know, it's for those that were at the time of the end. So again, there's more and more clarity as we see everything. And again, Israel is the key to understanding this and what's happening there.
Yeah, and so the masses are getting the secular worldview. And so that's the headlines, right? We're giving them the biblical narrative and the prophetic perspective.
Great.
Because we have that available, and especially if you're a believer, you need to take advantage of your biblical narrative and prophetic perspective. So I'm going to give you a few headlines to set the stage real quick here. This goes out in February 19th of this year. IDF strikes arms depot deep inside Lebanon after drone attack on the north. The Israeli Defense Forces on Monday afternoon struck what it said there were to be 2 weapons depots belonging to Hezbollah terror group near Lebanon's southern coastal city of where? Sidon, okay? Here's another one that's, I think is relevant to this too. Roya News, February 19th, probably the same thing here. Israeli airstrikes pound Sidon, South Lebanon. The Israeli Army radio reported that the attack on Sidon targeted Hezbollah's infrastructure and was not an assassination operation. Well, there's been some assassinations, right? They're really key at taking out key leaders. Matter of fact, I think it wasn't the Israeli Defense Forces, but I think it was God who took out former President Abraham Raisi on May 19th, right?
I do too. Now, I was listening to Caroline Glick the other day. I can't remember who she was interviewing. And Caroline Glick has the same position you and I do. It's God who took him out. And the person she was interviewing, he said, I'm not so sure that Israel didn't have anything to do with it. He's Israeli. I think he's a general. But nevertheless, God is sovereign. And I do believe it was God who took him out. You know, we had the Biden administration and Raisi meeting on how to destroy the nation of Israel. I mean, it's a bad idea.
Yeah, we had talked about this on the show right after the death of him, and he was one of the main endorsers of that attack on April 18th of Israel with all those drones. Yeah. We had made the comment of the Frank Sinatra song, he was riding high in April, then shot down in May. You know, so he tried to take Israel out in the air through missiles, and he was taken out in the air as his helicopter was likened to a missile. So that was, and it's reminiscent of Daniel 2 and 20 and 21, which it's the Lord who changes times and seasons, and removes and raises up kings. So this guy wants to wipe Israel off the map, so he's a problem. He gets cursed out of the picture. One last one here, I think I want to read here. Al Jazeera, March of this year, as Israel strikes all around it, fear rises in Lebanon's Sidon. Okay, it's in the news. It's in the prophecies. Okay, reeling from successive crises, the people of Sidon worry that the next one could come from the form of Israeli bombs. Many in Sidon also wonder if Israelis' war will hit their shops and homes, as towns on either side of the city have been hit by Israeli strikes or drone attacks. So this is living color. This is what's going on. So as far as the prophecy goes, let's just go. It's not too many verses. Can we go through it?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's put up slide. Would be the burden against Sidon. And on the bottom, it's going to be Ezekiel 28, verses 20 through 22. Can you get that one?
Yep. There it is.
There it is. Okay. Now, the first part of Ezekiel 28, we're dealing with the Prince of Tyre, the first section, and the King of Tyre, and then he goes, and then another message came to me from the Lord. Son of man, turn and face the city of Sidon and prophesy against it. Give the people of Sidon this message from the sovereign Lord: I am your enemy, O Sidon, and I will reveal my glory by what I do to you. When I bring judgment against you and reveal my holiness among you, everyone watching will know that I am the Lord. Okay, so right now we've got the Lord. For some reason, Sidon is up to the Lord. 2 times it mentions here he's against them. There's a prophecy going out against them. There's going to be judgment related to it. And in the process, somehow he's going to reveal his holiness through this judgment. Okay, can we go to the next slide that talks about 25 and 26? Excuse me, not that one. 23 and 24. If you can get that one.
There it is.
Okay. He goes on to say, we're talking about the judgment here, and we don't know why he's judging them. We don't know why he's against them yet. We're going to find out shortly.
Okay.
He just doesn't levy judgments randomly on people. God so loved the world, he sends his only begotten Son, because he loves people, right? I will send a plague against you, and blood will be spilled in your streets. The attack will come from every direction, and your people will be slaughtered within your walls. Then everyone will know that I'm the Lord. And then here's the key. Now we start to find out, well, why are you doing this, God? No longer will Israel's scornful neighbors, plural, prick and tear at her like briars and thorns, for then they will know that I am the sovereign Lord. So Sidon, along with Israel's scornful neighbors, remember Sidon's just above Tyre. We'll talk about Tyre in the prophecy in a moment. They're like a pricking briar to Israel. And if this is a prophecy for our time, that's what we've seen. All these Arab countries around them have been scornful. God illustrates it as a prickling briar around them. This judgment is going to lead to a series of successive judgments around those prickling briar countries. We'll get into that in a moment. And that's why, Israel's stuck in there. They can't dwell securely, etc. Now, the New King James says, the wounded shall be judged in her midst by the sword against her on every side. So now we have a picture of a military aspect of this judgment. Okay, probably the Israeli Defense Forces, but we're not exactly told on that. Can we go to the next slide that talks about verses 25 and 26? Okay, we got it. Thus says the Lord God, when I have gathered the house of Israel from the peoples among whom they are scattered, and am hallowed in them in the sight of the Gentiles, and they will dwell then they will dwell safely in their own land, which I gave to my servant Jacob, and they will dwell safely there. They will build houses and plant vineyards. Yes, they will dwell securely. Now, I'll stop there for a minute. 2 times, dwell safely, securely. Hebrew words are yeshav, vathak. The same 2 Hebrew words that show up and dwell securely and dwell safely 2 times in Ezekiel 38. We'll go there in just a minute. So we're going to find out this is when Israel's going to dwell securely. So they're going to build houses, they're going to be brought back in the land, they're going to dwell securely. But when? When I execute judgments on all those around them who despise them. He's just talking about a prickling briar and scornful neighbors. And then they shall know I'm the Lord their God. So Israel's going to dwell securely. They're not dwelling securely now, but these judgments are going to be executed upon them that despise them. And right at the top of the list, apparently, is a judgment upon Sidon.
So interesting passage when you look at it. It reads similar to Ezekiel 38, where God says you'll be dwelling safely and securely. A peaceful people, it says there. Certainly, we're not in that place yet for Ezekiel 38, but you're looking at this saying you're making this connection for current.
This is how we get there. So when I teach on Ezekiel 38, I say it's stage setting, but it's not yet ready to happen. There's some preconditions.
Yeah, I would definitely precondition. So you're talking, what we're watching now is it's a precondition as things are developing.
Right. They can't dwell safely or securely because the people around Israel who despise them are like a prickling briar. They need judgments executed upon them. This is where we start to see this beginning. They will be judged. Ezekiel 38 says they'll be dwelling as a peaceful people, securely,
Right.
without walls, bars, nor gates, and receive of great plunder and booty, because that's what Russia, of course, comes after with this coalition. They are not dwelling securely without walls, bars, nor gates. They've got walls to the north with Lebanon. That's why Lebanon is building tunnels underneath there. Walls around the Gaza, the fences. They got walls by the Sinai. They got walls by Jordan, and they got a partition wall that goes down Israel's center to keep Palestinian terror out of Israel proper, and that's about 400 and some miles.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, let me ask you this just for clarity for everybody watching. So, as you see it now, and I totally agree with you, Ezekiel 38, we're not there yet. One of the words for peaceful people describes a tranquil people. Israel's not in tranquility. Not since Solomon has Israel actually been there. I had somebody argue with me the other day. Since 1948, they said they've been there. I said, it's not the day after they were a nation, they got attacked. It's been nonstop. They're not a tranquil people. So what you're saying is, what we're watching now is this escalation, but God is going to deal with Sidon. There's going to be a judgment that's going to come upon Sidon, Tyre, and the other, and this is what's happening. We're watching the rise. God's going to deal with that. After he deals with that, then they'll be dwelling safely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Presently, the most biggest prickling part of the briar and the thorns is Lebanon with Hezbollah. I mean, you know, they've all been involved in the Israeli conflicts. But right now, the big issue is Lebanon.
Okay.
And this is where Iran is now going to start to focus its proxy, in my estimation. The headlines, we can keep on reading them. They're coming off the press, hot off the press every day.
Nobody else talks about this.
Yeah, and we got...
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Phase 2 of Hezbollah in Israel is probably about to happen. Everyone's worried about it. Saudi Arabia is telling people get out of Lebanon. U.S. and Canada get out of Lebanon. Netherlands, someone else just recently get out of Lebanon. They're all seeing it. They're all worried about it. And it's coming on phase 2, in my estimation. And it's got to happen because those Israelis got to dwell securely, get their people back into their homes in the north. But when this happens, Tom, the war is going to hit Haifa, Tel Aviv.
Wow.
The Mona nuclear reactor they'll go for the Ben Gurion airport. I mean,
do you think Damascus will end up being part of that on the tail end, or do you see that come? Isaiah chapter 17.
Well, I do, and you know, if you start Googling around now, because people start talking about is Hezbollah and Bible prophecy, most of the people they miss this, but they focus on Isaiah 17.
Right, completely. This is very insightful.
Mm-hmm. Because Hezbollah has a presence in Syria, like you just read that headline. They're in the Golan Heights.
Yeah.
You know, that firing their drone. I think what's going to happen is, my scenario that I believe is probably going to happen, maybe even this year. I mean, don't quote me on that, but this thing's going to break open. Phase 2 is going to go, and Israel's going to find itself in a prison rules fight with these guys. They're going to start depleting their missile defense systems. Chemical weapons are going to come in, and they're going to find themselves in a position where they got to pull out the nuclear weapon to take out a city. And Isaiah 17:1, for the viewers who aren't familiar with it, says, "The burden against Damascus, behold, Damascus will cease from being a city. It will be a ruinous heap. It will be reduced to rubble." This is the capital of Syria. It's the oldest continuously inhabited city in history, going back to the time of Abraham. We go forward, it says Isaiah 17, verse 9, because some people think that happened in 732 BC with the Assyrian Empire, but verse 9 tells us that's not the case. It says there'll be desolation in Syria's strong cities caused by the children of Israel, the Israeli defense forces. So that's who's going to take care of that. And Isaiah 17, verse 14 concludes with a dramatic verse. It says, "One night you see him speaking about Damascus in the masculine pronoun. In the morning he is no more." Because this is the portion of those who rob us and plunder us, which means, one, it's self-defense. Two, it also means to rob some people. So you got to have ground troops in there. You got to be going in there. And Hezbollah is prepared to go into the north and into those places. And Israel's going to find itself in, or it's going to have to destroy, especially if chemical weapons are coming in. You were interviewing a gal just recently, a teenager, and she said they got 15 seconds to get to a bomb shelter.
Yeah, that's right down there right by Gaza. It was Ella, where her dad was killed by Hamas, and her cousin was taken hostage. It's a great interview, but very heartbreaking. But it's real. You know, these people, they're saying this didn't happen. It's all lie. It's horrible. The lies are being said about Israel. Let me ask you this. You're talking about this, just specifically when you look at Sidon, everything you're talking about unfolding. We could be here. We don't know when the rapture is going to take place. You and I are both pre-tribulation believers, which means we believe the rapture will take place before the covenant of Daniel chapter 9. But could we be here for this?
We could. You know, you and I did a prophetic documentary called the Pre-Tribulation Prophecies,
which is also available in the store if anybody wants to check that out.
Really well done. I mean, I think it was 2 discs, a solid message, slides.
Yeah, everybody sees it right now.
Yeah.
It is.
It's available. Actually, that's...
Oh, that's the other one. That's yours. That's not my documentary.
That's my latest book, and a DVD I did with Mondo Gonzalez. But you and I did one, very professionally put together in your studios.
Yeah.
That talks about a whole flurry of prophecies that could happen before the tribulation. Of course, the rapture would be in there somewhere. We don't know when that's going to happen. It could happen in any given moment. It's imminent. It's a signless event, etc. So there is a likelihood or a possibility that we'll be here for some of these things. Okay. Maybe even this.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that so our viewers will understand. If this unfolds, like you're saying, before the end of the year, and we're still here, it's you need to know the tribulation has not yet begun, and I think we need to have that clarity, because how people are when it comes to videos that are out there. They'll make a video saying the rapture's going to happen tomorrow. You know, this guy's Antichrist and he's dead, and all these different things. You cannot lose focus on the Bible and understand the timing of things. So don't believe the tribulation has begun yet. If we're here to see these things, the pressure in Israel is going to increase, but God is still going to save Israel. We need to remember that.
That's right, because what we're talking about here is not the wrath of God being poured out, which will happen during the tribulation period. We're talking about events that are not the wrath of God, that are just need to conclude climatically in the Middle East, so Israel can go forward, dwell securely. And God's got big plans in Ezekiel 38. Everybody who wants to wipe them off the map, Iran, the Psalm 83 countries, the Arabs around them, they're going to fail, because God is going to make his holy name known in the midst of his people Israel. They won't profane it anymore. The nation shall know he's the Lord, the Holy One in Israel. It's Ezekiel 39:7. So when Russia brings all its troops down with Iran and Turkey and 2.5 million worth of troops, if it were to happen today, coming down from the north from Israel, not the Israeli defense forces, but God's going to stop that supernaturally with a great earthquake. It'll freak the soldiers out who speak different languages. It says every man's sword will be against his brother. There'll be fire, flooding rains, and pestilence, and brimstone. And the world will go, whoa, that was supernatural. That was the God of the Jews. And yes, I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. So that's where this is going to go. The big marquee event, Israel's back in the land. But meanwhile, you've got these prickling briars all around where Israel can't dwell securely that has to be dealt with. They happen to show up in Psalm 83 as well. I do want to say one thing, though.
Okay.
In Sidon right now, if you can go to the slide that says Lebanese resistance brigades, this is really fascinating because, let me know when it pops up.
Okay.
I'll get my
So
back.
the Lebanese resistance
brigades.
Okay. That slide, they'll pull it up in a second. Go ahead and while they're looking for it.
In predominantly stationed in the Sidon area are these Lebanese resistance brigades that they're funded and founded by Hezbollah. And they're vicious, and they've been involved in resurfacing again in the clashes that's been going on since October 8th between Israel and we don't have it yet. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about them real quickly.
Go ahead.
They're a paramilitary group founded.
There you go. It's up now.
Okay, they're a paramilitary group founded by Hezbollah in 1997. They were founded after Hassan Nasrallah's 18-year-old son, his eldest son, was killed he was in an elite fighting group with Hezbollah. He was killed in an Israeli clash. So he founded this resistance brigades, and it took all the people that, even some Shias, but mainly Sunnis, Christians, and Druze who hate Israel, and he founded this whole other resistance group that's under the umbrella of Hezbollah called the Lebanese Resistance Brigades, and they're acting out right now. Recently resurfaced, composed of Sunni Muslims. They were created to increase the manpower of the Israeli forces, manpower against Israeli forces, and deny Israel freedom of movement in the non-Shia areas. Because Sidon has quite a few Sunnis in that area there. So Hezbollah's tentacles inside of Lebanon and even into the Sunni areas and things like that. And you can see on the image there that one of the leaders is in Sidon, and they're generally stationed, the headquarters are in Sidon. So, I mean, again, this stuff is active. One last slide I want to show so we can move on to the next topic. If you can open the one that says John Gill's Exposition. The reason I want to bring this forward, Tom, I'm in the middle of finishing an article that'll be in the Prophecy Watchers magazine next month, and I'm going to do a teaching video on this topic. And in the video, I'm going to do more than just introduce it. I'm going to talk about all the commentaries, why it's not been historically fulfilled, and give my reasons why I believe it's impending right now, and probably maybe the next thing. Okay, here's, John Gill probably sums this up the best. He was between 1697 and 1771, before there was an Israel. So all he had to really look forward to was what was it historically fulfilled. And the reason I want to show this slide to you is because these are when you look at the commentaries, the only two potential historical places where this could have been fulfilled, and like I said in my teaching commentary that I'll be doing soon, I'm going to show why they probably weren't fulfilled, it's impending. Here's what he says: in the midst of her, by the sword upon her on every side. This was literally fulfilled in Sidon, or Zidon, now it's called Sidon, either by Nebuchadnezzar, when they conquered the Babylonians, and you can find talks about that in Jeremiah 27, and the Chaldean army when it was besieged on every side, or by Artaxerxes Ochus, the Persian king who took it and destroyed it. Now, those are the two primary arguments. So to be fair, I know when I start coming out with this, to be honest, I think you're the first people to hear about this prophecy. I mean, you said no one's talking about it, right? Okay, so I know what normally happens. When I start throwing something like this out here, my dear friends, I won't mention names, they come back and they say, no, that was fulfilled with Nebuchadnezzar.
Will happen, yeah.
It's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
So what I've learned to do is...
Hey, the pre-tribulation prophecy, so now everybody can see the DVD that we made together, which was great. So in there where we deal with some of these things, but not this part. We haven't done with the Ezekiel 28 in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we can move forward to some other prophecies regarding, I don't know how much time we got. We wanted to get into the...
Yeah, we've actually gone, we've gone a while. We might have to do this in another part, Bill. I think I'm going to have you come back.
Okay, I can do this real quick. The other two prophecies regarding, if you can do this slide that says Psalm 83, 6 through 8. There's another place where Gabal, is it up? Gabal and Tyre are listed, and those we talked about at the beginning are involved. They're in Lebanon. Psalm 83, just briefly, we talked about this on the Pre-Tribulation Prophecies DVD. We go give a good study on it. It's an Arab confederacy that comes together. We saw them sort of looking like they were coming together in 1948. They form a plan, and their goal is to destroy the nation of Israel, that the name of Israel be remembered no more. And we find out who's involved by their ancient names. One of them is the tents of Edom. They're listed in the habitation condition. The tents of would represent probably the Palestinian refugees who have ethnicity from their descendantry of the Edomites, so Palestinian refugees. Goes and talks about some more people. Then we get down to verse 7, it talks about Gabal. I've got it highlighted there. That's northern Lebanon. Ammon would be northern Jordan, and Amalek would be the Sinai. Then alongside hip to hip, look here, you got Philistia, which is where the Gaza are, the Hamas, and the inhabitants of Tyre, and other people listed in the habitation condition. Tents of Edom, refugees, inhabitants of Tyre. The other ones aren't listed in habitation condition. Why did he single them out alongside Philistia, where the Hamas are? So Hamas and Hezbollah are terrorists, are proxies of Iran. It goes on and talks about Assyria, which would be northern Iraq and northern Syria back then, 2,000 years ago, has joined with them. They've helped the children of Lot, that would be the Jordanians. The Hebrew word for inhabitants, this is interesting. It talks about the inhabitants are it's Yeshav, and it says people. It can say inhabitants, or it could be dwell, but sometimes it's used in the Bible to say people who are set in place and sit enthroned. Okay, and so I'm wondering if that's not talking about Hezbollah. In other words, they were set in place, founded in 1992 by 82 by Iran, 92 with Hezbollah and Nasrallah. They're enthroned in the military. They're a paramilitary group with a medium-sized army, like a world army. They got political party as well in the Lebanese parliament. So I'm under the impression that that's going to be the case. But what goes on to happen here is the Israeli Defense Forces are going to win this war. And that's going to conclude the prickling briar scenario around there. Those that need judgments executed upon them. We don't have time to do a Psalm 83 study. I've written a book called Psalm 83, The Missing Prophecy Revealed, but I would encourage you to get the DVD we did. You can get all you need on that. That's a documentary. That's just not a teaching video. That was really well done.
Yeah, people are going to really understand these things a lot better with that help too. Hey, I want to mention this because I find it so fascinating, is when you look at Israel today and throughout history, you have the problems where Israel has problems in Gaza, they got problems in Judea and Samaria, and they have problems in the Golan Heights. Those are their four primary difficult areas, not to mention other challenges if you go outside of their borders. But when you look biblically, what did they do? They didn't take the Gaza area. The tribe of Dan decided, instead of taking that area, because the Philistines were too difficult, they decided to relocate up to the Golan Heights, which was a huge mistake. People could see the map there. That was a mistake. And then when you have Judea and Samaria, what did you have? You had the corruption of Jeroboam, and then in the south, and then you had you have Rehoboam up north, and Jeroboam in the south, and you start having these challenges after Solomon died. And what are the four areas that Israel's still dealing with today? It's these areas. It's as if God is saying, okay, you're supposed to deal with these 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. You guys didn't. And guess what? These problem areas are still here. And by the way, I just want to encourage everybody, again, if you would just share this, it's a way that you can be involved. You might be thinking, how can I really tell other people about what's going on? Well, one way is just share the video, and it's free to do that, and it helps us. We like, subscribe, and share. We really do appreciate it. Okay, Bill, I just find that always fascinating with Israel today, where they were, and they're still dealing with these, and the enemies around
the prickling briar.
Yeah, it's still here we are.
Well, these are these people, I'll just do it real quickly. The people in Psalm 83, the prickling briar, I'm presuming we're talking about here, they share common borders with Israel. They're why Israel can't dwell securely. They need judgments executed upon them. The ones Ezekiel says that despise them. That would include the Lebanon, where Hezbollah is. That would be Iraq and Syria. Of course, Iran has proxies in both places. That would be Jordan, although Jordan has a fragile peace treaty with Israel. That's going to be gone. We point that out in the documentary, the proxies between Israel and Jordan. The Palestinians, the Hamas, the Gaza, the Philistia area, the Saudis under the banner of the Ishmaelites, Egypt under the banner of the Hagarenes are listed in that one slide we had earlier in Psalm 83. They have shared common borders with Israel. They've harbored an ancient hatred of Israel since time immemorial. They're the reason Israel can't dwell securely. The treaty with Egypt is going to go away too. That's in Isaiah 19, verses 16 through 18. We're going to see that go. These people are going to be dealt with. Some people say, well, Psalm 83 has been fulfilled, or it's just a prayer, okay? Well, the tents of Edom, if they're the Palestinian refugees, and I do a big study as to why they are.
You do.
They became reality after 1948. Some people say the prophecy was fulfilled in the War of 1948. They became reality after the War of 1948.
Yeah. In which book was that Israelstein, or which book was it?
My first book was Israelstein, came out in 2008, all about Psalm 83. I got you and Gary Stearman and Hal Lindsey and Chuck Missler talking about Psalm 83. After the Arab Spring, I updated it to Psalm 83, the missing prophecy revealed. But I want to say that when Asaph, who wrote the psalm, goes forward and talks about what he wants God to do with this, he starts gives us historical examples in the book of Judges and stuff. And I won't get into all that, but the Midianites were mentioned and the Canaanites were mentioned. They both oppressed the Jews, and when they were taken out, they no longer oppressed the Jews anymore. God empowered Gideon, etc. Leaders were taken out, and infantries were taken out, etc. in those historical accounts. Asaph concludes I'm going to read the last two verses of Psalm 83 and connect it to Ezekiel 28.
Okay.
The Sidon. Asaph has been petitioning God to do certain things to that Psalm 83 confederacy that wants to wipe Israel off the map. They showed their ugly head. They voted against Israel in the United Nations in 1947. They went to war against Israel in 1948. Came back again in 1967 and 1973, which is another reason it didn't get fulfilled in 48, because it's supposed to, according to the petition I'm going to read here, end the oppression like it did with the Midianites and the Canaanites back at the book of Judges. He goes on to say in verse 16, 17, and 18 about this Arab confederacy, fill their faces with shame, that they may seek your name, O Lord, let them be confounded and dismayed forever. Yes, let them be put to shame and perish, that they may know that you, whose name alone is the Lord, are the Most High over all the earth. And what did Ezekiel say after Ezekiel 28 says, then everyone will know that I am the Lord, no longer will Israel's scornful neighbors prick and tear. In other words, this has to happen. The prickling briar has to be removed so that Israel can dwell securely, so that we can go into Ezekiel 38 and God can make his holy name known, put the world on official notice. He's God, the God of the Bible, the covenant-keeping God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, promise keeper of Jesus Christ, believers. And that's where we're headed, Tom, in my estimation. Step one, these Hezbollah prophecies and the connectors with Isaiah 17 onto Ezekiel 38. Rapture is going to happen in the middle somewhere.
Okay, so here's the deal. We're out of time.
Okay.
So, but I know we didn't finish everything. I'd like to invite you back.
Okay.
We'll get you back in here as soon as possible. This has been a lot of fun today. It's kind of nice to have a real person with me in studio instead of just doing everything via Zoom, and it's great. But we'll get you back on the schedule as soon as possible, because I want to pick up from here, because I find it really fascinating. And I've been saying, I mean, you and I both got to deal with the comments. Ezekiel 38 is going to start tomorrow. No, it's not. We are not there yet. I've believed, even when I started watching the Gaza War, October 7, and everything developing, something's going to come out of this as fighting escalates, because we know the North is going to escalate. Something's going to happen out of that that's going to lead to the peace and safety of Ezekiel chapter 38, but we're certainly not there yet.
Right.
And we could be here, and I think that's just the preparation in everybody's mind, knowing that this word is our life and light, and it keeps us anchored, and we can't turn to the left or right. I'm going to say this also. I'm going to give some caution out there because, Bill, we're coming into the 9th of Av, and we're also coming into Rosh Hashanah, and then the Feast of Trumpets and Feast of Tabernacles, and all kinds of people started saying they put rapture dates on there. Be careful. Don't do that. Trust in the word. The Lord will call us home on that day. In the meantime, press forward. But there's so much deception that's out there. Be very careful. But Bill, this has been great having you here today. So again, how can people connect with you?
Website is prophecydepot.com, Prophecy Depot like Home Depot. Also visit our YouTube page. Just type in Bill Salus, S-A-L-U-S. Subscribe there. We got videos on there, lots of content. We also have a daily news report we do, looking at the current headlines and the news reports through the biblical lens. That's at prophecyheadlines.com, prophecyheadlines.com. And Tom, thanks for inviting me back. It's 110 degrees where I live right now. What are you doing tomorrow?
No, it's 115 where you are, because it's 110 here. So I know it's a little bit hotter where you are. You're going to be about 120 by the time you get back home. But it's nice in here. It's because it's air conditioned.
I know.
But it's not nice out there.
I don't have to go home, do I?
Well, it's not a lot cooler where you are, but I guess you can stay here in the air conditioning
right
if you want.
here in the studio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let's tape all day long.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. Bill, it's been great having you today. Just terrific. And everyone also, David Towell's going to be joining me tomorrow. And David's going to be, it's going to be everywhere. So we typically have an app exclusive on Wednesdays, but we decided we want everybody to view, check out the interview I have with David Towell. So that is on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Check it out. It's just going to be fantastic as he brings his insight, being an IDF major and a tank commander on what's going on. As my friend Brandon Holthouse just recently said, you know, if you're not Israeli, it's really hard to know exactly what's going on. We can read, and I love Caroline Glick and all the things that she has, but being Americans, you look at some of the geopolitical things, we don't have quite the insight. David's just going to be fantastic. That's tomorrow, so check it out. Bill, this has just been terrific with you today. Again, thank you very much.
Sure.
And can't wait to have you back. God bless you, everybody.